Okay, so now we're going to go over what not to do.
Yeah.
8 tired boss fight tropes that need to die. This is the place where everything goes to blow up. GamesRadar.com. We'll put the link in the description below. We're also going to put in the description for the VOD a Gameranx video link. So that's a link to YouTube's Gameranx video channel, and they talk very good about things that you're talking about, like the setup, the stakes, all of that. So between the articles here, what we're talking about, and this video, we think you guys can get enough of what it's going to take to make a good boss fight.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to go over 8 tired boss fight tropes that need to die. These are things that have been overdone. If you're a developer and you have one of these in your game, you might want to consider not doing it.
Strongly consider not doing it.
Yes. So we're going to go over each one. Feel free to toss out your own ideas. We'll catch up with Chad in a bit. So first off, needlessly regenerating health. If your boss has to constantly regen health over and over again just to make themselves more of a challenge, you as the developer aren't actually creating a challenge, you're creating a feeling of frustration.
No shit.
There's nothing wrong with a boss healing themselves once or twice during a battle. There's nothing wrong with a boss having a healing minion that you have to beat as part of the strategy. All of that's okay. But if your boss has a regen on them, if your boss is constantly tossing high potions at themselves, you're not putting enough effort into the actual boss strategy itself.
That's true.
Unless it's one of those little tricks where you have to put reflect on the boss so the cure goes back onto you, that's fine. But don't do that more than once.
Yeah, once and one time only.
You get once.
Yeah.
But don't have your boss constantly healing. It's annoying, and it shows that you as the developer
don't know what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, cowardly minion distraction. There's nothing wrong with minions. There's nothing wrong with mobs. They're fine. Bad guys have had minions attacking with them since the beginning of antiquity.
Yes.
Look at Space Invaders. That's nothing but minions. And each, but here's the thing. Having them just there, constantly being thrown at you. If the enemy's attack is throwing a mob at you, that is also something that might be a warning sign you need to design your boss better.
Yeah.
Why in the world does a player want to fight tons and tons of minions?
We don't.
I'm going to give a caveat here. If the minions are an attack and then they leave the screen after they attack, like specifically Dreamy Bowser in the end of that in battle for that game, where one of Dreamy Bowser's powers is he summons like all the Goombas and Koopas forever, and they rush Mario and Luigi and beat the shit out of them.
Oh, yeah.
And then they run off screen. That's an attack. That's not a mob.
Yeah.
That's okay because 1, it could be hilarious. 2, it just shows that I'm a bad guy. Minions, go beat them up. And then they run off. That's not the same. This is just tons of mobs for no reason. It looks lazy.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Again, if you have a good story reason, you get one. You get it once. Just the one. All right, let's catch up a little bit on chat here.
Okay. Well, AOD says that there was a YouTube video that did a deep dive into Necron fitting into the greater plot of the story. But they need to find that video.
It'd be nice to see that. When we first played Final Fantasy IX many years ago, we kind of saw something coming with the Transkuja plot, with the Transkuja battle, that there was going to be something afterwards because of the things Kuja says. It looks like there's going to be a something afterwards.
Right.
We weren't sure what it was going to be though. And then when Necron shows up, we were like, okay. But it didn't age well, and I agree, it wasn't really explained well by the game.
No, it was not.
So
to me, it came out of left field.
It did. We knew something was coming. We just weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
Music was cool though. Okay, so KV says about healing bosses, they can also work if you give the player tools to overcome the healing somehow. Right, we talked about that. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. If the player can find a way to overcome it, and that's a strategy, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different. Okay, thank you for the link there, Burke. We'll go ahead and check that out after stream.
Absolutely. I'm curious about that.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Okay.
Okay, attacks from the background. I don't even know why this is a thing. What is it with programmers, developers creating bosses that jump into the background where you can't hit them and then start slapping you in the face?
Yeah.
Like Galactica's here on screen, or Master Hand in Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, it seems like at this point you're just trolling your player. There's nothing wrong with your enemy rising from the background.
Mm-hmm.
There's also nothing wrong with your huge, massive skyscraper-sized boss being in the background and then throwing something into the foreground that you fight, and then it joins in afterwards, like a phase.
Right.
But if it's in the background where you can't hurt it and it's just slapping you with its wiener, you probably need to not do that.
Skyrim actually does that with their dragons.
Oh, man.
It's so bloody annoying. The dragon just rises and then goes and sits on a mountaintop. All right. Really?
Well, flying dragons are such an annoyance in Skyrim that it's actually a main mechanic to get them to land with the dragon rend shout.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you literally are taught how to dragon rend because the concept of them flying, especially if you're not an archer, is so damn annoying.
Yes, and then they'd land on an out of reach mountain. And they're sitting there and they're hurling shit at you and they're way over there.
It might be a little salty. Maybe. Okay, the next one. Spontaneous rule changes. Just don't do that. Okay, actually.
Unless it is part of a really awesome plot twist.
Yes.
Like that one game we played.
Okay. If you're San from Undertale, you get to ignore this.
Yeah.
Because San's entire shtick in his fight is changing the rules on you. Constantly. So if you're San, you get to ignore that and you get to change the rules and do whatever the hell you want because you're amazing. All right, let's catch up a little bit on chat here.
Okay.
Okay. Ronald says, I'm actually just lurking and wanted to say what I think on Necron. Okay, so we're still talking about Necron. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The appearance of Necron is mainly to make Kuja less evil in the end. And it's true, because Kuja's not a bad person. Kuja's entire motivation is fear of death.
Yep.
He's terrified, so terrified of death that he's doing what he's doing to, well, destroy Garland and find a way to continue to live. And then when he finds out he has a definite expiration date, he loses it because he fears it that much. He's a fear-driven character. And I think that's a very good point you brought up, Ronald.
Yeah, and Burke brought it up as well.
Yeah.
Kuja. The whole despair and return to nothing.
An absolutely amazing villain.
Yeah.
Kuja is one of the better villains Square Enix has ever created.
Boy, yeah.
If not one of their top 5. But he's not enough in the final boss syndrome if you want to make him sympathetic, because he wants to destroy all existence.
True.
So then by having him fail at destroying the crystal and it's summoning Necron and Necron being the one to destroy existence, they've de-escalated Kuja's evil and just played it up that it's just desperation.
Yeah.
So I kind of I see what Ronald's saying. I agree with it.
I see the point, yeah.
Okay, back to San. I mean, back to rule changes.
Rule changes.
If you have your core mechanics, don't change your core mechanics on the players. It's not clever.
Ooh, it's not clever.
It's not clever.
It looks just sloppy and wrong.
It looks like at that point you're trolling them, you're punishing them for playing.
Yeah.
Again, unless you're San. San gets to do that 10 times out of 10.
But the reason that it works is because that expectation was set up in the very beginning.
Right. In other words, the entire time you're playing Undertale, it's fight, mercy, and then the bullet hell to dodge the attacks. That's what Frisk does. And then when you fight San, and San flops it all on his head because San has 1 hit point.
Yeah.
He's got 1 hit point, he's got 1 defense, he's got 1 attack. He is literally zip. But he's constantly changing the mechanics on you to punish you because if you know anything about Undertale, spoilers for Undertale, San's trying to get the player to quit.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to actually win. For him to win is to get you to rage quit.
Yeah.
So he trolls you the entire final battle, which is chef's kiss. Okay, next. Attrition, HP grinding. Battles of attrition are not fun. They never are fun.
I see that so often.
Especially if the enemy can heal itself. get knocked out. Specifically the final boss of the first Borderlands.
Yeah.
Fuck that thing.
Lord.
Battles of attrition are not fun ever. They're not fun in tabletop RPGs.
Nope.
They're not fun in video games. They're just not fun. Avoid them, please. Next, unclear hit feedback. Let the player know that they've damaged the enemy.
Please.
Even if it's just, or let them know that they've hit the enemy. You know, even if they're not damaging. Like if you have the big, huge boss in full freaking plate mail armor with the halberd of doom, and he's walking towards the player laughing, ha, 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 and you're going up and you're going swing, swing, swing. Let them know they're not doing any damage by clink, 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 something. Give them some knowledge of the fact that they're actually hitting the enemy and that the hits are doing nothing. Or if it is damaging, maybe you just see that bar go down just a tiny bit. It's like port, 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 like this little pathetic sound. Something.
That's why I love HP bars so much, because I can see on a graphical level how much health the boss.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with numbers. I've seen video games where it's numbers up there, and I'm busy playing. I don't have time to sit there and analyze numbers.
Still to this day, my favorite way of handling HP bars is the Soul series. Like I love the way they do it. It's a bar. It's full. You hit the amount of damage you did just goes to like changes the bar from red to yellow, and then the yellow recedes to black and recedes to nothing. So it's like that way you can go combo, 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 and the red bar goes yellow, 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 and then shrinks. It is a very good visual representation of how much damage the combo did and how much damage you're doing. And it works in reverse with how much the enemy just did to you.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have an HP bar, really take a hint from the Soul series. They're so good at the way they do it.
I like the way Kingdom Hearts did it.
Right.
Especially with their later bosses. They KH2, they had hit bars, and you go through the pink one, then you go through the orange one, and then the blue one, and finally you go through the green one, and you know, hey, I'm near the end. That
was the first one, right? The very first Kingdom Hearts was like that.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because in some of the later fights where the enemies were not even damageable at first, it was pink and nothing was happening, and then finally when the pink starts going down, you're like, okay, I've worn on the enemy's defenses, now I can actually damage them.
Right.
In Kingdom Hearts 2, they just had multiple HP bars. And you had like, you know, the full HP bar, and then you had underneath it like 5, 6, 7, 10 little mini things that showed you how many HP bars they had. And as you took down a full HP bar, one of the little ones vanished and it started over. So you always had a visual idea of where you were with that boss. I like that too. I think the Kingdom Hearts series also did a really good job.
Yeah.
If you're going to have numbers pop up, have the numbers mean something. You know, consider going with a small HP base.
Yeah.
Where, you know, enemies have like 100 HP and you're doing like 10 or 15 damage, as opposed to 12,000 HP and you're doing like 1,500 to 1,252.
Too big damage.
Because the problem is larger numbers, the human brain can't really follow those.
Yeah. Final Fantasy is guilty of that.
It's guilty,
you know, having
as
HP in the 100,000s, the millions, and you know, your attack caps out 9999.
99999. Which is funny because Final Fantasy 14, even though they have the damage pop up because that's their shtick, they have HP bars.
Yeah.
So you can actually see visual representation of how much damage they have.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yep. And then, you know, KV says, you know, things like a life bar. Change in posture is good too.
Change in posture is a good one.
If you're doing a 2D engine, have the idle change. So it's like, you know, at first your boss is standing there, fully, you know, ready to go, and then they start stooping a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah.
Until they're near death. That's a good way.
That's a good one.
Give your players an indicator as to where they're at. The ambiguously unkillable boss. We talk about this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, if the player is not going to win the fight, if they're destined to lose that fight, they need to lose as quickly as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Do not let it draw out. Do not let them waste resources and times.
So, as a rule of thumb, how many rounds?
Honestly, we always say within 3 rounds. It really needs to be within the first 1 or 2.
Yeah.
We say 3 as the hardest absolute limit.
Yeah.
Straight up. And we say that in every game we do, regardless of engine, RPG Maker, doesn't matter. If we look at a game and you have a battle you're destined to lose, you get 3 rounds.
Yeah.
We prefer 1 or 2. It needs to be as soon as humanly possible. Okay, catching up with chat here. Kuda Dude says, I'm fine with big numbers. I prefer them than bars. Kuda Dude, could you tell us what is it about big numbers that you like? Why is it you prefer them? I'm interested in knowing. I used to like big numbers back in the day, but then I found it annoying to keep track of as a player, which is why I pulled away from that. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. What does AOD say?
And AOD says, 14, nothing is like being a tank and you see 5 seconds to your face smashed against the wall and panic slamming Limit Break 3.
Oh, that's for 14, Final Fantasy 14, yeah. I have to say this, the mechanics of tanking in Final Fantasy 14 that I have seen do look pretty cool. This is a total side tangent.
Yeah.
There's one fight where actually this huge guy, massive ass enemy, has this huge sword, and a tank character specifically takes the sword at a full downswing and catches it with their shield.
Wow.
And parries it. Yeah, and it's like a quick time event for them. So like, everyone else is attacking the sword while he's sitting there, the tank is just sitting there holding it off, fending it off. And of course, if the tank fails the QTE, the party wipes or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's some serious stakes there.
I saw Fox and 404 play that, and I loved watching that fight. That was awesome. Okay. So Kuda Dude says it's easier for me to process numbers in my mind than look at a bar and guessing how much damage I'm doing. So you actually find it easy to process big numbers.
Yeah, Kuda Dude is number focused, and that's awesome.
And big numbers.
Yeah, big number. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is cool. It's cool that I find that most players that I've come across aren't like that. But if you can process the big numbers, seriously, kudos to you, man.
Yeah, so it's a different way of doing it.
Now, I do agree with AOD's statement, which is big numbers make my brain release dopamine, my big barbarian brain. Now, that is true, and that's why the Disgaea games are so popular. Because you're doing hundreds of thousands to millions of damage against those later bosses, and it just makes you feel like a badass. However, there's other ways to make your player feel like a badass other than have giant numbers pop on the screen. And that could be the way the enemy reacts to impacts of certain attacks.
Oh, yeah.
The way certain things physically look. Even turn-based battle engines. Persona 5 does it. When you pull off a thing like painting that face black, or when you knock the crown off of the first boss, those moments make you feel like a badass.
Yeah. That crown knocking was something spectacular.
Or when you have the barista, the ballista, not a barista because you make coffee. When you have the ballista knock the flying Sphinx enemy off, those moments make you feel like a badass. So let me challenge you guys who like to have the numbers pop up. Why not think of a different way to show the player that they just did something cool, other than have 9,999 pop all over the place. Just thoughts. Okay, so we're moving on. Long fight, short dialogue list. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
You'll never defeat me. Ha, is that all you got? Such a weakness, miserable opponent. You'll never defeat me. Ha, is that all you got? Such a weakness. Shut up.
Wow.
If your fight's gonna last long, either have very varied dialogue that is really good and shows what stage of the fight they're in, or don't have dialogue.
Or just don't have dialogue.
Because people don't usually talk when they're trying to kill someone.
Yeah, I'd rather just go ahead and fight instead of talking.
Yeah.
In fact, that's really good advice that Tuco gave in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
If you're going to shoot, don't talk.
Yeah, pretty much. But if you have to go with it, if it's a JRPG and you want to be like an anime, follow anime advice, actually. Watch a freaking episode of, don't watch Dragon Ball.
Don't watch that one.
Watch Sword Art Online. It may have a lot of issues, but its fight scenes are pretty damn good. Watch an anime where two opponents are busy talking to each other between battle phases. Something like that.
Yeah.
In other words, don't have a long fight with 3 pieces of dialogue that are currently rotating. Does not.
That's just lazy.
Yeah. Now witness my true form.
You said that 3 forms ago.
I did. So There's nothing wrong with boss fights and phases.
Yeah.
I love boss fights that are in phases. I do too. In fact, a phase shift generally means that it's a strategic shift.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a good way of letting a person know, okay, I got to change up my strategy. The final boss fight against Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's 4 phases. Each phase is, represented by new people joining. First it's Cloud alone, then it's Cloud and Aerith, then it's Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa. Then Barret and Red 13 join for the last part. Those are phases, and your strategy has to shift each time, but it's not Sephiroth changing forms. He grows a wing once.
Yeah. And
becomes more badass. And that's cool because you're expecting the badass. But it's not like it's not like Ultimecia.
Oh.
I loved it when I first watched it, and now that I'm older, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a winged sorceress who then summons a giant lion thing, then she merges with it, and then she turns into the universe. It's just too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. If all of your bosses shift forms and go from Form A to Form B, and Form B is their real form, this better be a damn good story reason behind it.
Yep.
It better be like everything junctions to a butt.
Yeah, I got that. Everything junctions to a butt.
I mean, yeah, and Black Rose mentions the Dragon God and Chrono Cross, right?
Yeah.
Changing phases. Change your phases to where it's a change in strategy, not a change in sprite.
And also, just as a side note, you know where you are in the fight with the phase change.
Right.
Because you're like, hey, I've progressed pretty far in this fight because the boss changed.
Right. And the music can change too.
It's a good gauge of how well you're doing.
Right. Now, Burke says about True Form, Ganon and Soul of Cinder would like to have a talk. Okay, so I don't know about Soul of Cinder, but let's talk about Ganon specifically in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
That is not a now witness my true form trope. That is story. In Ocarina of Time, you fight Ganondorf at the top of his tower, and it is a very technical fight. It's a really good fight, but very technical. When you beat him, you then flee the tower with Zelda, and when you're outside the remains of the tower, Ganondorf turns into Ganon. It's not a now witness my true form sin, it is the story culmination of Ganon's corruption by the Triforce of Power.
Yeah.
This, what we're talking about on screen, is doing it for the cool.
Yeah.
Doing it just cuz.
Yeah.
If you can have a compelling story reason for anything that's on this list, you can go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
In fact, remember what we said earlier, setup and payoff. If the setup and the payoff bring any of these things into light in your game, then it's fine because you're setting it up. But don't do it just to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you done blew it.